Talking about the verdict coming out of the George Zimmerman trial in the shooting death of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin in Florida last year in February. My guest this hour has a column in which he says, while MSNBC and CNN are both vying for the position of being the new black entertainment television, giving airtime to every black face they can find to give an opinion on the not guilty verdict in the George Zimmerman Trayvon Martin murder trial, the tone of the conversation is reduced to white guilt condescension toward blacks. And he goes on to say, profiling something we do every day, whether we admit it or not. Bob Parks joins me. Bob has an extensive history in media. He is currently journalist and senior video producer for the Media Research Council. And he has, as I say, an extensive career in the area of journalism and both in terms of online column writing and also, as I said, in terms of video work. He also served as vice chairman of the Massachusetts Republican Assembly, ran for chair of the Massachusetts Republican Party in 2007, and so forth, and has in fact produced, written, and edited the award-winning cable access program Black and Right. His website is black-and-right.com. Bob, thank you for joining me today.
No problem. Thanks for having me on, Don.
I appreciate your insights and your thoughts from your perspective, especially as a black conservative. Give your own reaction to what you were saying in the column that while the pundits lament profiling of blacks, some of us kind of invite it, you ask. So elaborate on that.
Well, first, let me preface this by saying in no way am I saying that what happened to Trayvon Martin was something he deserved, had coming. I'm nowhere near that. First off, the whole Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman trial from the very beginning was a media creation. I'll step back by saying that there are stories that news directors, whether we're talking print or video or radio, they scour through lots of stories every day and try to find the one that's quote unquote sexy. In the case of Trayvon Martin, they saw a young black man shot by a Hispanic, and they created, in order to make it even sexier, because to have a black man shot by a Latino is nothing new in this country, unfortunately. So what did they do? They created the term white Hispanic. I'm sorry. I'm going to be 55 in a few months. I've never heard of that term until this trial. But that was a little hook that they could give it, that little racial edge that would bring people in. And then when you talk about profiling, and I heard pundits over the weekend saying that, that could have been my son. Okay, I have two sons, and I would hope that I have raised them in a way that, and if you remember when we were growing up, for example, if we were in a quote-unquote an area where we were not supposed to be, and that had happened, we're young guys, young kids, so that would happen, whether it's going through somebody's backyard or whatever. And we were confronted by an adult who said, "What are you doing here? It's time for you to go." What would be our response in the time that we grew up with? Yes, sir. I'm leaving, sir. You know what I'm saying, Don?
Oh, yes. Oh,
okay.
Yes, I do.
Today,
I have pictures of my neighborhood in my mind as you say it.
Okay, but today, if you look at any video that you see online, you will see young people who will get in the face of adults. They feel like they are equals to us. And that may be all well and fine as far as the Constitution goes, but when it comes to the people who house them, feed them, pay to educate them, I mean, come on, give us a little bit of respect. And so I don't know, and none of us know what happened that night in Sanford, Florida, so we can say whatever fits the way we wanted this trial to end up. But at the end of the day, something was said that provoked this and turned it into a fist fight. If it was my son, if I found out my son was in a quote unquote area that he was not supposed to be, and I found out he mouthed off to an adult who lived there, my son would have to deal with me after whatever happened. Okay? Heaven forbid it would have escalated to that point. Now, as far as the profiling goes, I'm sorry. I always get accused whenever I bring up issues like this, because there are black people who say, well, you can't be airing dirty laundry in front of white folk. Okay? But I'm sorry. You look at what's happening in Chicago. You look at what's happening in inner cities across this country. It's been getting worse for decades. Okay? But crime happens in the black community. We see video of this crime. We read stories about this crime. You hear news stories on radio stations about this crime. So when crime happens, people, and it meets a certain MO, they will think black people. I'm sorry. I didn't create, I am not personally on the police blotter. So I cannot say anything except for what I read. And when you see all of this black-on-black shooting going on in the streets of Chicago, I really wish, for example, that the media would spend so much more time talking about this, where we have over 213, and I think there was the two more shot last night. So roughly 215 black people or young people in the city of Chicago alone have had their lives ended. And what is CNN and MSNBC doing right now? They're talking about the unfortunate killing of one black kid by a quote-unquote white Hispanic, and just blowing off the fact that hundreds of young black people, mostly young black males, are being killed in this country every day, and it doesn't seem to bother them a bit, as long as they could turn this into a race thing that they could use for ratings. I'm sorry, that's what this is all about as far as I'm concerned. It's not about justice to them, it's about ratings.
I want to come back to that, Bob. We'll be back with Bob Parks in a moment and talk further about this. 888-293-9282. Toward the end of the hour, we may have a few minutes for you to comment on our conversations. We'll be right back.
The winner of Salem Broadcasting's Talk Show of the Year Award. It's the Don Crow Show on Life-Changing Talk Radio, WAVA.
Proving once again the computers do have a mind of their own. Julie put up on my screen here, the computer just froze. Had a hiccup, I guess, Julie, but that's all right. We press on. Don Crow Show brought to you in part by Cornerstone First Financial, high-integrity mortgage company. They are ready to help you with your mortgage needs when you call them at 202-625-1221 or visit them on the web at cornerstonefirst.com. 202-625-1221, cornerstonefirst.com. A few more minutes of conversation with Bob Parks, senior video producer at Media Research Center. His own website's black-and-right.com. And what I hear you saying, Bob, from your perspective, not simply on the Zimmerman Martin case, but more to the point, your focus is on the hypocrisy of the liberals. I call it feigned outrage, and as Paul Harvey used to call it, selective righteous indignation. There are only certain stories they're going to get really exercised and upset about, and it really is driven by whether or not it's going to do anything for their ratings?
Well, that's just the way it appears. I mean, right now, if you look at especially MSNBC, well, I'm not even going to just single them out because of this verdict. You've seen probably more black people on the cable news channels than you have since OJ. And I don't think there was only pretty much CNN back in those days. So this is just an opportunity for them to find people who can interpret what is going through the minds of black folk for the rest of the nation. I think it's very condescending, but I think it's something that we've been used to for a long time, because it seems like whenever there is black-on-black violence, We never hear much about it in the media because I think a lot of those media people don't expect much more from us. Whenever there is this kind of crime, or when we talk about poverty, or we talk about poor education, which a lot of it is the fault of the people that the people in the community vote for, but that's another story for another day. But whenever we hear about the things that happen in the black community, the excuse is always, well, it's a result of their socioeconomic condition. They never treat us like we are people who actually know right from wrong. In other words, sometimes I think they look at us like animals. I've made the analogy over the years that when your cat pees in the corner, you don't get mad at the cat because the cat doesn't know any better. So when we're shooting up each other in the black community, they make all kinds of excuses for us. They don't treat us with the humanity that I think and I'm hoping that we would deserve, that we know right from wrong, and we need to be able to combat this from not just an activist standpoint, but we need to get back control of our young people and say, you know, and even a one-parent household can get control of those children if they're not being circumvented by schools, by popular culture that are telling our young people that you have your own rights, you should be able to do what you want, and you shouldn't have to answer to these people because you're your own person. And there's so many things that are getting and interfering with black people and the way black people live in our communities, that when these things happen, they just make excuses for us, and then it just breaks down when it comes to a trial like this to entertainment for the likes of the CNNs and MSNBCs.
Well, I would say, see if you agree with this as we wrap up this quick visit, that what we really need is men and women in office and places of decision-making who do treat the black community with the respect, as you just cited, that it certainly merits and deserves, and not be condescending even some of the programs that we've put in place or allowed to occur. I talked with Pastor John Jenkins a few minutes ago about the Holocaust of abortion, for example, just as a case in point against the black community. I see it as such, and also other programs that created dependency and penalize the black community and black families from becoming whole and healthy.
Well, you know, and I thought that I had come up with a line that was very profound, and it turns out about 30-something years beforehand, Malcolm X was the one who said, when you vote for the people who put in the president, when we vote 80 to 90% for one party, and then when they get in office, they take care of all their agenda, and they never get to the part that they promised you, why do you keep voting for them? Because nothing ever happens. And, you know, people like myself get called all kinds of names because, heaven forbid, I don't vote the way I'm quote-unquote supposed to. And I get called a sellout. But it was Malcolm X who referred to black Democrats as the chumps, and he even called them traitors to their race, because they vote for people who don't do anything for them repeatedly. Maybe, I know this is not going to be the catalyst for such a discussion, but at some point, if black people don't wake up, there's no reason to expect any different than what's going on in the community if you're going to keep making the same mistakes and do the same thing you do year after decade, and nothing changes except, if anything, it gets worse.
On that note, we'll break. Bob Parks, thank you for visiting with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Don.
Bob Parks, senior video producer currently at Media Research Center, MRCV, and also, of course, his website I've given you, black-and-right.com. Back in a moment.